All right, so who's running the prompter? I almost said Kevin Durant. What is up, guys? It is time for another CPR, and this time we are ranking our 10 favorite players from the 2018 World Cup. Now remember, this is not a list of the best players in their position or for their team. In this particular case, it is the list of the 10 players you would not want to match up in a World Cup match. So let's get to it. For number 10, it's Harry Maguire. There's just something about Harry that makes you love everything about him. He's a no-nonsense central defender who's chartered the back line of an England squad that has for years been under arguably as much pressure as the Germany, Brazils, and Argentinas of the world, and yet somehow he's been pretty unfazed by it all. And now, I don't see how this Leicester City man doesn't make a leap to a much bigger club this summer. And I know this is a CPR and I shouldn't be taking positions into account, but players like him are the backbone of any team's success. Plus, I was a defender, so it makes sense. He's got a goal to his name and will go down as one of the heroes that turned a fickle and disappointed fan base into fans for their national team all over again. At number 9, it's Mexico's Chucky Lozano. And I know this is a controversial one because it could be Hector Moreno or Memo Ochoa, but I'm running with it, and here is why. There were big questions going into this World Cup for Mexico, especially regarding who starts up top and who will be the star for Mexico at this actual World Cup. Would it be Chicharito, Jimenez, Chucky, Vela? Well, on match day 1, it became abundantly clear that the 22-year-old Chucky was going to prove to the world that he was capable of stardom. Mexico's run ended in heartbreak and the continuation of the Quinta Partido curse proceeds, but Chucky has established himself on the back of a goal and an assist as a bona fide Tier 1 player, which is exactly why the PSV star is now linked with moves to United, City, and Chelsea, as well as some small murmurs of interest coming out of Spanish giants Barcelona, according to Chucky's father. Either way, we know how good he was in the second-tier league, and this World Cup proved he can take that next step. At number 8, it's lumbering Colombian center back Yerry Mina. Now look, before we get into the rest of these top 10, I gotta tell you guys, it was an extremely difficult process ruling some of these players out. But those are the rules of CPR, and Yerry Mina fits naturally into the CPR because, well, he's a monster at this World Cup. Let's also establish 3 goals as a center back in an entire club season would be considered way above average. But 3 in a World Cup from a defender was the first time since the 60s and makes Mina Colombia's second highest goal scorer at a World Cup ever. And he's only 23. Oh, and they were also all headers. What's even crazier is that Barcelona paid only 11.8 million euros for him and then slapped a 100 million price tag on him if anybody ever wanted to buy him. Given a 10x price tag on a player's purchase price sounds ludicrous, but after this World Cup, you could see exactly why they did it, and now big clubs all over the world are looking for ways to get their hands on him. For number 7, it's Daniel Subasic. What's a CPR of a World Cup without adding a goalkeeper? This World Cup has seen some incredible goalkeeper performances, including some from Memo Ochoa, Courtois, and Jordan Pickford, but my goalkeeper of this tournament has been Daniel Subasic. He saved 4 penalties in the tournament and has led what is considered to be a golden generation to either a World Cup trophy or a runners-up medal. We're talking about a nation of a few million people here. This type of story gives me all the World Cup vibes, which is exactly what you want. Not only has he been superb between the sticks, but he's also shown that he's loyal after wearing an undershirt with a photo printed on it of his best friend that passed away, even though FIFA continues to threaten him for doing so. Subasic's connection to this friend is a sad but inspiring story from his youth football days that you should definitely look up, and it has certainly played a role in his success as a goalkeeper. Coming in at number 6, it's Russia's Artem Dzyuba. When I was in Russia on the first day of the World Cup, this guy single-handedly brought the tournament to life. We were in the fan park, and he was subbed in the 70th minute to chants of Dzyuba, 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 and you could tell he already held some sort of cult status in Russia. And sure enough, a minute later he bagged a goal, and the atmosphere went from casual oohs and ahs to World Cup pandemonium. I am not joking. He then assisted Cheryshev, and we found ourselves and every other person from every other nation all in on the Russian national team. Dzyuba went on to finish the tournament with 3 goals and 2 assists, starting in every other game after the opener and making the host nation the darlings of the 2018 World Cup. At number 5, it's Romelu Lukaku. I know my hot take in our Premier League preview was that he wouldn't be a top 5 finisher in the Premier League, and I was right, but I did not hold that against him going into this World Cup. And what we've seen is the Lukaku that we fell in love with at Everton. A massive presence, a threat in front of goal, and a player that you just don't take your eye off anytime there's action in the area. Now that is both good news for Belgium in their third, fourth place game, but also great news for Jose Mourinho, who must be watching these games salivating at the idea that Lukaku has rounded the corner of his inconsistency as a striker. While it's unlikely that he'll win the Golden Boot, he's been nothing short of world class, and alongside Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne, he's carried the pressures of Belgium's golden generation's last chance to win a medal to a potential third place finish in this World Cup. That's class. Coming in at number 4, it's N'Golo Kante. If I had a Russian ruble for every time someone said, I haven't heard much about Kante in this tournament, I'd be richer than Roman Abramovich. Truth is, that's exactly why he's on this list. He does all the dirty work needed so players like Pogba can cheat up the field, and so players like Mbappe, Griezmann, and Matuidi can focus on literally attacking only. With no Kante, I can wholeheartedly say that France would not be in this final. Of course, you can't truly say that with definity, but he is a man who asks for no attention or praise and does most of the type of work that's worth praising. Outside of their World Cup opener, France have owned the midfield, and it's not because of Pogba, it's because of Kante. For number 3, and only because his team didn't reach the final, it's Harry Kane. There's only one thing that's been brighter than the World Cup global recognition of the It's Coming Home song, and that's Harry Kane. Going deep into a World Cup is a slog. It requires experience, guile, and a bit of luck, but it also requires a lethal finisher, and that's exactly what Harry Kane has proven to be over the last few years at the club level, and it's been no different at the international level in this World Cup. He's sitting first in the Golden Boot race on 6 goals with a 2-goal separation from the nearest goal scorer, that is Romelu Lukaku. He's got a 2-goal cushion over Lukaku in the Golden Boot race, and the only way he loses it if Lukaku scores 2 goals or if Griezmann or Mbappe come up with a hat trick in the finals, which is unlikely. I can say with certainty that unfortunately it's not coming home, but I can guarantee you that the Golden Boot is coming home with Harry Kane, and likely a paycheck that is well deserved for a new contract for winning a Golden Boot and being as good as he is. At number 2, it is Luka Modric. And while I think about this, I realize that this could easily be Rakitic or a number of other Croatia players, but I feel confident in putting Modric at number 2. Not really much of a hot take. Modric has been a genius in this World Cup, plain and simple. If you were to ask a random fan who's been following Croatia's progress in this World Cup, they'd likely tell you Modric is the one who's been pulling all the strings in the attack and their go-to guy when it comes to creating moments in front of goal. If you were to ask the random fan sitting next to him, he'd likely tell you that Modric is the one responsible for Croatia's defensive success, and that he covers the pitch like N'Golo Kante. The truth is, he's been both in this tournament, and that's incredible. He's led in the attack, and he's been seemingly everywhere defensively. He's the guy that gets a ton of love at the club level, but always probably deserving of more credit for Real Madrid's success, and this tournament and his performances at this World Cup prove exactly why. And finally, at number 1, it's Kylian Mbappe. If Lozano was an example of a breakout player for his respective country, there is no way to describe the impact of 19-year-old wonder kid Kylian Mbappe. Not only has Mbappe been the breakout young player of the tournament, he's likely been the most talented player in this tournament, and he's only 19. Because he plays in the French league, many people weren't convinced of his abilities just yet, and many hadn't had a chance to see him play on a regular basis. But game in and game out, he has shown exactly why other people and most experts think he could be the best player on the planet in a couple years' time, and potentially be the first to win that Ballon d'Or that Messi and Ronaldo have held so tightly over the last 10 years, which means he would likely win it before Neymar, the guy who we all thought was the next in line to take over the Ballon d'Or reign. He's got 3 goals to his name in this tournament, and he has been the best player for a nation that is 2 World Cup world-class 11s deep, and he's done so while seemingly having a lot of fun, and each game he just seems to be getting better and better and better. It's incredible to think that this kid could be leaving this tournament with the World Cup MVP, whatever that trophy's called, in one hand, and the World Cup trophy in another. Imagine that. And because the World Cup is a celebration of some of the best players in the world, we gotta give some honorable mentions out. So, here it goes. Big ups to Kasper Schmeichel for showing us what courage is and making his daddy proud. Felipe Beloy for scoring Panama's first ever World Cup goal, Eden Hazard for saying he'd rather lose in a Belgium shirt than win in a France one, Alexander Golovin and Denis Cheryshev for incredible performances that inspired the current and future generations of football in Russia, and finally Takashi Inoue for again making us fall in love with the Japanese national team and their culture. So guys, who did I miss? Do you agree with my list? Get down in the comments and give me yours, and let's keep this conversation going. And as always, comment, like, and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.